Thanks for joining us on another edition of Drawn to Wildlife. Here's your host, Drew Ramage.
All right, welcome to another show for Drawn to Wildlife. Your host, Drew Ramage. This week on the agenda, I know of one thing specifically we're going to talk about, and that is hunter recruitment. And we're going to be talking with somebody from QDMA. His name is actually Hunter. And we're going to talk to him about getting new hunters involved in the outdoors. Right now is a great time of year to be doing that with a lot of seasons kicking off. You got the squirrel season, dove season here in Kentucky, some other early waterfowl seasons, and of course deer hunting as well. Before we get going too far into this, though, I want to give a shout out to a couple stations that are probably listening to us right now, and that is going to be the WBGZ in Alton, Missouri, the St. Louis area, and then also WGGH in Marion, Illinois, the Paducah, Cape Girardeau, Harrisburg, Missouri market. But we appreciate y'all listening. So for the first half of the show, we're going to at least talk to Hunter of QDMA about the hunter recruitment. That's been one of the things I put a Facebook question out a couple of weeks ago asking some topics, and that was one of the topics that came up. And when I was talking to Lindsey Thomas of QDMA about the no-till food plots a few weeks ago, they said they had somebody and some people dedicated to this since hunter numbers are declining, trying to bring those numbers back up. And we've always focused on the younger people, and especially me. I got a son, a buddy of mine that's got a son, and we try to take them and maybe some of their friends hunting every now and then. But there's a lot of people who are older that would like to get into hunting, and maybe they've never been asked or just never had the opportunity to experience it before. So they're finding ways to get in touch with people that might have the most interest in hunting, maybe providing food for their family. And we're going to talk to him about that in depth. Anyway, all right, got Mr. Hank Forrester on the phone. I had the intro wrong there, Hank. I was calling you Hunter. I was going off memory instead of my notes. So, again, I apologize, but I got your name right now. But we got Hank Forrester with QDMA. Hank, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Great. And we tried starting this just a second ago, and I had an app interrupt us, so I had to start it over. But you were telling us a little bit about yourself. Can you tell us what you do there at QDMA?
Sure. I'm the Hunting Heritage Programs Manager for the Quality Deer Management Association, or QDMA. So anything to recruit a new hunter, educate a new hunter, to get existing hunters to reach out and recruit new hunters, advocating for new hunters and all that kind of good stuff. It's kind of the burgeoning market, affectionately these days known as R3, or recruitment, retention, reactivation.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really trying to increase hunting participation and the societal acceptance of hunting.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with this right here. I mean, I was looking on your website, and let's just start there. Hunter numbers are down, right, or decreasing. Is that what the trend has been?
Hunter numbers are way down. We lost over 2 million hunters between 2011 and 2016. There's 11.5 million licensed hunters, 16 years of age or older in the United States. It's only about 4.5% of the U.S. population. It peaked, hunting participation peaked in the number of licensed sales in the 80s and has been on a pretty steady decline since then.
Mm-hmm. And I guess a lot of our recruitment for hunters had been, especially for me, focused on, getting kids involved in that. But y'all are taking a little bit different approach to that, aren't you?
We have. No, we've done a lot of, kids programs or youth programs, still do a ton of kids and youth programs. And that's not something we're going to abandon, but
Sure.
We've gotten smarter, and we've got to get smarter. We've been crunching the data, looking at what works, what doesn't. We found that unfortunately many of our, quote unquote recruitment programs weren't reaching new audiences. They were often kids from hunting backgrounds. We just weren't doing a good job of trying to and making sure we are recruiting licensed buyers and not really just going on a heartstring and what feels good, but actually doing things that work. And, so I wouldn't tell anybody to abandon any youth programs or anything, but we're more strategic. We're making sure we're finding youth who don't come from hunting families, and aren't likely to hunt otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
We're teaching their parents as well, because a kid doesn't have, a checkbook, mode of transportation, and really doesn't choose what they do with their calendar. And so we've just gotten smarter about the youth programs we do. I'm a board member of Scholastic 3D Archery, a national, youth 3D archery program. And, I'm looking at those kids, those that aren't in hunting families, but are doing something that's close to hunting, that, they're gaining interest in hunting through target archery. And, let's create programs that get those kids to the next step. Just trying to be smart with our time and energy and all that kind of good stuff. But we're really trying to increase the number of hunting license. So we're trying to make lifetime hunters.
So what would be one of the reasons for the decline? Is it just that age group of population is?
It's a lot of things. Yeah, it is an age demographic issue. The largest cohort or group of hunters today are baby boomers. Baby boomers didn't recruit. They didn't do a good job of recruiting the next generation. They're the largest group of hunters, and we know statistically they're the most likely to hunt. Unfortunately, and I hope we all buck this trend, there's pretty much a hard stop on hunting participation at 70 years old. And that's obviously not life expectancy, but you lose a couple hunting buddies, you have poor health. I've seen it with people on blood thinners and stuff that just don't want to be outside anymore or in the cold, or you have a significant other that is in declining health that needs to be taken care of. I mean, there's a whole multitude of reasons, but unfortunately, people stop hunting statistically at 70 years old, and that's where our baby boomer generation is right now. And so we know that we're going to have this participation drop off when they age past 70. And we're starting to see that. And that's what we've seen in the last 5 years. And we've been talking about it forever. I mean, as my entire career, we've been talking about this, but, we weren't diligently acting. And I think that has changed. But, we know that we're going to see a decline in participation because of generational differences. Today, more people live in urban areas than ever before. Yeah. So, that's an issue because there's just not access. You're not growing up in a culture that has hunting around it, or the opportunity, whether there is a serious lack of opportunity or perceived lack of opportunity. But people aren't growing up around the farm. The natural pathways of getting into hunting have changed or have diminished. Less people are doing it. Less people are growing up in a hunting family. And, so as a percentage of population, we're even worse off because we just continue to lose ground in a percentage of Americans that hunt. And, we all have to understand that at 4.5%, there are consequences to being a vast minority.
Sure.
And, just something about hunting culture that I see is you talk to hunters, and they say that, everybody I know hunts. And we know it can't statistically be true. So I feel like hunters are becoming more insular. We're not discussing hunting with people that we might perceive that it could be controversial. But we're very fortunate. And this is where it hinges, I believe. The most recent data, you saw the Field to Fork video we produced, and it starts out with me saying that 78% of Americans, the public, when polled, approves of hunting for meat. I mean, that's huge. We're recording some of the largest approval ratings of hunting we've ever seen. And even since we created that video last year, there's been a study released that public approval of hunting deer and turkeys is 82%.
Wow.
If you put elk in there, you put bear in there, it goes down. But deer and turkey, those animals that are, fortunately pretty populated across their range, I think a lot of it has to do with interaction. So I think it's because they're in our backyards and they're maybe sometimes even perceived as pests. But public approval of hunting deer and turkey is very high, and we need to utilize that public approval, but also understand that people aren't against hunting, and so you should share your stories and make sure that you're being a good advocate for hunting, and you're showing hunting in a good light and for what it truly is. The big buck brags or the bloody Instagram photo that's not,
that doesn't help.
very respectful isn't doing anything
Hey, Hank,
good.
I got 10 seconds here. So let me, hey, everybody, we're going to come right back, talk some more with Hank Forrester of QDMA about hunter recruitment right after this quick break.